Does it have the screen on there?
Yes.
Okay.
Like all of the
I
screen?
forgot my crackers. I left them on the counter.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody,
Little red dot.
if today goes well, it's
Check it out.
because
How to do it.
Pastor Mark has left me great notes. If it doesn't, it's my fault. We're going to start at the beginning, okay? Everybody except Sam, tell me what the first promise is. I know you know it too. Answered it. Sam and Justin.
The whole world will be blessed.
No, the very first,
Oh, the very first one. That there will be
there will be a Savior. Yes. Okay. The
There was also
promise to Moses. Welcome, Ty.
Wait, never mind. That's Abraham.
Okay. So what was the promise that God gave to Moses? One?
He went on the earth.
Yeah, he won't destroy the earth again. Okay. Promise to Abraham.
That will have many descendants as the stars.
Okay. That's one.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
He will have the land as far as he can see right in it.
Okay, that's two. Alex,
The whole
third.
world will be blessed.
The whole world would be blessed. Wonderful. Okay, and then after the Exodus, the promise of the covenant. Sam.
Okay, it was like the 10 Commandments,
Yeah, the Ten Commandments. And what was the very first commandment?
that you shall have no other gods.
No other God. Okay, and then we went through Jericho and David. Sam.
One of David's descendants, like his descendant will have the throne forever.
Forever. Yeah. Who was that?
Jesus.
Not Pastor John or Pastor Short.
Nope.
Yeah, Jesus. So, what do we need to add? What was last week's about? So there were 3 groups last week, right? Lonnie's group, what did your group talk about?
Remember we made the poster? And then
I don't remember.
Yeah, say it.
I don't remember what.
oh, King Nebuchadnezzar and
Yeah, you guys did the King Z.
King
You did
Z.
the faces.
King Nebby.
And Cambridge and
Okay, so Kalani's group did the evil eye and
Sword, father and son, that the father gets killed and the son takes over.
okay, and was the father and the son following God's commands?
No.
And in our group, Sam and
We
boys,
did like the burning of Israel, right?
Destruction of Solomon's temple.
Yeah.
yeah, and what was the name of the city it was in?
Oh. No,
That was earlier, right?
Is
Jericho
it
was here.
Israel?
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem, yeah. And then in Nebi's group,
King Nebi killed King Z.
yeah, so if we put all 3 of those together, what was the general theme of last week's?
Like people weren't obeying God and then they had a consequence.
Okay, yeah. And what ended up come crashing down or burning down? What the city, right? Basically the fall of Jerusalem. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And so all those kings were doing bad stuff and worshiping Baals, and we all know what that is, right? Okay, do you guys have any questions from last week's story? I mean, it was almost generation after generation of people essentially worshiping false gods and sinning and sinning and sinning, and basically brought the kingdom of Israel to its knees. Okay? Now, that was session 17. So we're going to do these 18 and time. I might need help.
You really think you need those big side photos? I got like 31.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't mess with the cheese. Oh, that actually is.
We're gonna start more than with it.
Justin never ran that before. Justin. That computer, what they're working on back there.
Yeah, I've done it once.
Come on.
I'm trying to figure out. One second.
Yeah, see if you can't,
Alright, one second.
You might want to stop it.
They were killed. Once the three men were inside, the king jumped up and asked his advisors, "Weren't there three men you threw in? I now see four men, and the fourth looks like a son of the gods."
I got them cheese too.
You and Danny Boy are like twins.
In the beginning,
I don't think so. I don't look anything like
Danny Boy.
Why do you call them
I don't know.
in the beginning, God created the entire world. Then God created man out of dirt. God told Adam, "Eat."
Sorry, let me try.
We're not allowed to call him Honey Boy. We're 7th graders.
I'm gonna call him whatever I want.
Go, Elsa. Wait, who's Honey Boy?
Okay.
Daniel.
The 8th grade teacher, at our school we're not allowed to wear hoodies that are not like school colors and
Like
don't
they
the
have to
school
be like
symbol.
what Ty has on.
Yeah, it's gotta be like
In
this.
our class.
And he wears this gray hoodie that says Hollister over it, and his teacher made him take it off and put it up in front, and everyone in their class started calling him Hoodie Boy, and then she started calling him Hoodie Boy, and now they keep saying we can't call him Hoodie Boy because we're 7th graders and they're 8th graders.
Wow.
Did the teacher set the best example by calling him a name other than his name?
No, she's not very good at setting
He
good
calls
examples.
him Lynn Martin.
We can't call our teacher Chris.
Yeah, we can. We can call him Miss Bri Bri.
Yeah, we call her Miss Barbara. Miss Pretty.
Our team at Science Night is called
And when I said we call him Miss Bri Bri, my mom didn't believe me.
There we go.
Yeah, we do. Miss Barbara.
The Israelites were now living in exile in Babylon, far away from home. The Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar selected a group of the most healthy, educated Israelite men to study the Babylonian language and culture for 3 years, then put them to work in his royal court. In this group, there were 3 men named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They served the king faithfully, and the king placed them in powerful positions. Nebuchadnezzar wanted his people to worship him, so he built a 90-foot-tall gold statue of himself and commanded everyone in Babylon to worship it. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had committed themselves to only worshiping God. So when everyone else in Babylon bowed and worshiped to the statue, the three men stayed standing. Nebuchadnezzar was furious and sentenced them to be thrown into a fiery furnace and burned alive. The king ordered the furnace to be turned up to 7 times hotter than usual, so hot that even the guards who threw them into it were killed. Once the three men were inside, the king jumped up and asked his advisors, "Weren't there 3 men we threw in? I now see 4 men, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." The king ordered the men to come out. When they did, everyone was amazed. Not only were they still alive, but they were in perfect condition. Not a hair on their heads had been burned. Once again, the king was impressed, and not only let the men go, but promoted them. Years later, a new king of Babylon named Darius came on the scene. A friend of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego named Daniel, who was also an Israelite, was so well liked by the new king that the other leaders in Babylon became jealous and hatched a plot to get rid of him. They tricked King Darius into signing a law that said Darius himself was a god and should be the only god anyone should worship for the next 30 days. Daniel heard about the law, but chose not to follow it. He went into an upstairs room in his home and looked out the windows facing toward Jerusalem, and he prayed to God 3 times a day. When the Babylonian leaders saw Daniel praying, they told King Darius, who was now forced to punish Daniel. He was arrested and thrown into a den full of lions overnight. In the morning, the den was opened, and Daniel was not only alive, there was not a scratch on him. Years later, after the Israelites had all been living in exile for 70 years, the Babylonians were overtaken by Persia, and the Israelites were allowed to return back to Jerusalem. They were going home. Before the Israelites left Babylon, the king of Persia, who had overthrown Babylon, decided to help them rebuild the temple back in Jerusalem. He organized people from all over the land to give livestock and supplies to the Israelites. He even returned all of the gold and silver that the Babylonians had stolen from the temple. 50,000 Israelites returned to Jerusalem and rebuilt the altar of the temple, then laid the foundation for the building itself. Before the temple was even finished, the Israelites began to offer sacrifices and worship God in it once again. But other countries surrounding Jerusalem began to worry about the Israelites regaining power. So they sabotaged the rebuilding project, and it came to a standstill for 16 years. But God used 2 men, Haggai and Zechariah, to encourage the Israelites to resume building the temple and not to be afraid of their enemies. So they continued building, strengthened by the prophet's words. The opposition continued, this time from a man named Tattenai, the governor of a nearby region. He wanted to stop the Israelites from building and worked to convince the Persian king, Darius, to stop the Israelites. Not only did King Darius not stop the rebuilding project, He threatened Tattenai and anyone else who would try to stop the temple from being rebuilt, that he would kill them. Then he made Tattenai give funding, animals, and supplies to the Israelites. So the work continued, and almost 70 years after it had been destroyed, the Israelites finished rebuilding the temple. They dedicated it by sacrificing hundreds of animals to God and returning the priests back to their positions of leadership in the temple. God was once again worshipped in Jerusalem. The Israelites left Babylon, many returning to Jerusalem, and some heading to surrounding countries. An Israelite named Mordecai moved to a country called Susa with his adopted daughter Esther. While they were there, the king of Susa, Xerxes, was looking for a woman to become queen. Young women from all over Susa, including Esther, were brought to live in the king's palace and go through a year of beauty treatments before the king would make his selection. When Esther finally got to meet King Xerxes, he was attracted to her more than any of the other women. So Xerxes placed a crown on Esther's head and made her queen. But Esther did not tell him that she was an Israelite, also called a Jew, because Mordecai asked her not to, fearing his reaction. One day, Esther's father, Mordecai, was sitting near the king's gate and overheard two of the king's officers planning to kill the king. So he warned Esther, and Esther told King Xerxes. The king's life was saved, and the two men were executed. Shortly after, King Xerxes promoted one of his men, named Haman, to a position higher than all the other officials. He commanded everyone to bow down as Haman entered each day through the king's gate, but Mordecai refused. When Haman saw this, he was furious and even more angry when he found out from some of his officials that Mordecai was an Israelite. So he looked for a way to kill not only Mordecai, but all of the Israelites living in Susa. He convinced King Xerxes to declare a law stating that all Israelites living in the region would be killed on a specific day because they would not follow the king's laws. When Mordecai heard about the law, he tore his clothing and wept bitterly. He convinced Esther to go before the king, reveal that she was an Israelite, and ask the king to spare her people. There was one problem. No one, not even the queen, was allowed to come before the king uninvited. If they did, they risked being put to death. But Esther was brave and approached the king, who asked, "What is your request?" Esther said that she wished for the king to host a banquet and to make sure that Haman, the man who wanted to kill the Israelites, was there. At the banquet, she would make her request known. When the day of the banquet came, everyone, including Haman, was there. The king asked Esther what it was that she wanted. She revealed that she was an Israelite, a Jew, and begged for her own life and the lives of her people. The king was furious with Haman, who had convinced him to create the law and had him arrested and killed. Then King Xerxes not only removed the law to kill the Israelites, but gave all of them living in the region protection and rights. Because of Esther's bravery, the Israelites were spared and even honored. short time, the Israelites who had been spread throughout Babylon and other countries began to arrive back home and worship God in Jerusalem at the newly rebuilt temple. But the wall around Jerusalem had still not been rebuilt, leaving it vulnerable to an attack. There was an Israelite named Nehemiah who was living in Susa at the time. When he was told there was no wall to protect him, he wept and prayed, asking God to help rebuild the wall. Nehemiah returned to Jerusalem and gathered the priests and officials and told them of his plan. The plan worked and the wall was rebuilt in only 52 days. Nehemiah wanted to make sure the Israelites were not only safe, but worshiped God with their whole lives. So after the wall was completed, he gathered all of the Israelites, and the priest Ezra read to them from the book of Moses. The people understood that they were not currently living God's ways. So they began to weep, but Ezra stopped them, instructing them to instead celebrate all that God had done and return to God's ways. So the Israelites did what Ezra said and began to party. This went on for several days. A short time after this, God sent another prophet named Malachi to the Israelites. Malachi warned the people of what would happen if they turned from God's ways, but also reminded the people of God's promise to bless Israel and use them to bless the entire world. After Malachi, God did not speak to the Israelites through a prophet for 400 years, but God would not be silent forever.
Okay, so those are the chapters leading up to today's. So a little recap. After the fall of Jerusalem, it was Nebuchadnezzar, right? What did he build?
He built a statue of himself.
Right, yeah. Made out of what, tin?
Gold.
Gold, yeah. So he built the statue of himself and made everybody basically bow down to him, right? And who were the three guys that didn't bow down?
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And what did he do to them?
Threw him into the fiery furnace.
Yeah. And so they survived, and he made them big. And then along came Daniel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one was they rebuilt the second. That's right, they rebuilt the temple of Jerusalem. And then Queen Esther came along. That's right. And Queen Esther, somebody recap that story quickly?
She married the king, and then the king had this guy, I can't remember his name, put him high power, and then whatever the other one's name was, wouldn't bow down, so he wanted all his guys to be killed. So he got the king's son-in-law, and then Esther came up at a banquet saying that she was an Israelite and she didn't want them to be killed, and then the king took the guy, killed him.
Saved the Israelites, yeah. So it was Haman, and Malachi was Esther's father. All right, okay. And then the last one started out with some of the minor prophets, right? And what did Nehemiah do? Helped rebuild in 52 days.
The wall.
The wall. Yeah.
The wall.
The wall. Jerusalem. And then there were some of the prophets, and Prophet Malachi. I went through it quickly. But basically, Prophet Malachi reminded the Israelites that God said he would bless them. And how many years from there to today's story? Approximately. Louder, Clone. 400. Yes.
Over time, the Israelites who had been spread throughout Babylon and other countries began to arrive back home and worship God in Jerusalem at the newly rebuilt temple. But the wall around Jerusalem had still not been rebuilt, leaving it vulnerable to an attack. There was an Israelite named Nehemiah who was living in Susa at the time. When he was told there was no wall to protect him, he wept and prayed, asking God to help rebuild the wall. Nehemiah returned to Jerusalem and gathered the priests. It had been 400 years since God had spoken directly to the Israelites. Then, one day, God sent an angel to a girl named Mary, who was engaged to a man named Joseph. The angel told Mary that she would soon become pregnant and give birth to a son named Jesus. God would give him the throne of his ancestor David, and his kingdom would never end. But Mary was a virgin, and this confused her. So the angel told her it would be by God's power that she became pregnant. When Mary's fiancé Joseph heard about this, he decided he would quietly end the engagement. But an angel visited Joseph as well, telling him not to be afraid, and that Jesus would save people from their sins. So Joseph and Mary decided to get married. Soon after, they traveled to the town of Bethlehem. Because so many other people were in town, there was no place for them to stay. While they were there, Mary gave birth to her son, wrapped him in cloths, and laid him in the manger. There were shepherds living in the fields nearby. While they were watching their sheep, an angel appeared to them, announcing that a boy had been born in Bethlehem. This boy, said the angel, was the Messiah, the king that the Israelites had been waiting for. So the shepherds left their sheep and raced to Bethlehem, finding Mary and Joseph and Jesus. The shepherds praised God for their new king. During this time, the country of Rome controlled all of Israel. After hearing about Jesus' birth, a group of magicians and astrologers came to Herod, a governor working for the Roman Empire. They claimed that they had seen a star in the sky, telling them that the king of the Israelites, now called Jews, had been born. This news really upset Herod. When they arrived in Bethlehem and met Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, they felt great joy. Herod was furious and commanded that all boys in Bethlehem who were 2 years old and younger be killed. But God had already warned Joseph, who by that time had moved his family to Egypt to hide. Later, after King Herod died, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus moved back to Israel, to a small town named Nazareth. They stayed in Nazareth for years, raising Jesus. When he was 12, they traveled to Jerusalem for a festival. When the festival ended, Joseph and Mary left for home with a large group of people. But Jesus stayed behind without them knowing. When they realized he was missing, they went back to Jerusalem and found Jesus sitting, listening to the teachers and asking them questions. His parents were upset and couldn't understand why he had stayed behind. Jesus told them, "Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" Joseph and Mary didn't know what he meant. They did not yet fully understand the importance of who Jesus was and all he would do.
Okay. Thanks, thanks for the volume control there. Okay, so, how about, we look at our sheets and do the see the eye story, draw, create a simple image or in your simple image that you think best represents this story, and then you can get into your little groups and discuss it. Here you go. Sorry. One for you there, John.
And she was like, oh, I was cracking up then. I ain't gonna survive tomorrow.
I'm going to.
Oh, yeah. Jamie's gonna volunteer. And Skylar. No, Ty won't volunteer.
He's already volunteered.
To read tomorrow in science. I would be cracking up.
Yeah, I
would be like,
babies don't have eyebrows.
And Miss Robbie says
Babies don't have eyebrows.
they have no eyebrows. Nobody knows how to spell Jesus. Baby Jesus. Baby Jesus. Really
Get into your little groups and discuss.
We're not done yet.
I'll stop you laughing.
Stop doing mustache
Baby,
on baby.
because they were going to kill all the babies.
Yeah, I just did that.
What?
Chapter 22, right?
Yeah. The birth of the king. The birth of Jesus.
What did you draw, Alex? Where Judah and Mary and Joseph, they were going, but then Jesus was missing. What about you, Justin?
I do like people had faith in Christ until now because it actually happened. Because like since the very beginning, people believed that he would send a savior and like, he would be a son of David.
But he's mostly
Oh, the signs worksheet you guys had.
Oh, is that what at first,
That would have said
because
Me?
I was just like, I'm not doing
Quickly write it.
Okay.
Ty, did you draw something?
That's what I don't even Oreos in that.
Yeah.
Jazz, are you gonna have
Can I have one?
Sure.
Lonnie went back to.
What'd you
I mean,
draw,
were
Ty?
you like
No.
starting?
I wouldn't have.
I don't have that kind of self-control.
Me either. I've been cracking up the whole time.
I can't read those kind of words.
Okay, so this was on chapter 22.
I laugh when she.
And then she does a big old, the eighth grade told me she does a big old talk about it after.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be.
I got
You can come up through here.
Don't feel good.
I got Ebola. I'm going down to the office. No, I should plan my cough drops trip in.
I think so, yeah.
Because I have to go down to the office and get them because I'm not and have to keep them with me. Because that wouldn't be safe, would it?
Okay. No, whatever it is. Okay, so does anybody want to say what some of the key parts of the story is? Diane?
I have like the birth of Jesus.
Okay. Other key parts?
Well, that's kind of a title.
We're all born. Exactly, so.
Well, Jesus is special.
Okay. Blonde?
I'm special.
And I'm not.
No, you're not.
When he is like preaching to the people at the temple,
Yeah.
you have bladder problems.
So what, hey, so what about, what was he doing at the temple?
Like telling everybody about God.
Yeah, how old was he?
I don't know. Little kid.
Little kid, yeah. Yes, he was 12 years old.
Look at, oh man.
When King Herod has all of the boys 2 years and a year killed,
Yeah. Why do you think he was doing that?
because he gave one Jesus to you poor.
Yeah, what was he thinking? Sorry. So what had he heard? The Magi came, and what did they tell him? Tell King Herod. What did they call Jesus? That's all right. King of the Jews, right? So why do you think he'd want Jesus killed? Or why would you think he would want the King of the Jews killed?
Because he wasn't Jewish.
Yeah, and
Because he didn't want like the Jews to turn on him and
yeah, maybe. Sam?
Like, he didn't want Jesus to become the king and then not him.
Exactly. That's what I think. Right? Because he was thinking that this mighty king that probably would get a big army and basically defeat Herod. So that's why I think he wanted him killed. Right? Other parts of the story? Nobody else in the story?
Well, there's like the wise men.
Yeah, the wise man. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who had the baby?
Mary.
Oh, Mary, yeah. And who was her husband?
You were
So what about Mary in the story?
She was a virgin.
She was a virgin. Yeah. So how'd she get pregnant?
What is it?
Well, okay. And her husband or her fiance?
What about?
Pardon?
Well, yeah, what about him?
Is he just along for the ride?
Well, I mean,
Like, he's Joseph, but then, like, they go, he, like, leaves Mary for a little while, and then, they go,
Okay.
Okay, so Joseph is Mary's protector, because back in those days, if you were a girl and you weren't married or you were fiancé, you get pregnant. You get
Fiance?
stoned.
Say what?
There's no such thing as fiance.
Fiance, whatever. You get stoned to death. So Joseph was like her protector.
Okay.
Fiance?
Okay. What other things about Joseph? Kalani? I'm not ignoring you, Sam, but you seem to know it all, so
I just
I'm spreading the love around. Kalani?
He didn't want to like be with her at the beginning, like when he first found out she was pregnant.
Yeah, why?
I don't know. Because he would be the stepfather. What?
Yeah. So if Matilda and I were engaged to be married, and then all of a sudden I find out she's pregnant, what am I going to think?
She was cheating!
Yeah.
We got it.
Okay. Now there's something else about Joseph. Who is Joseph? Who's his great grandfather?
David.
Okay. So we handed out some scripts. So can we have everybody come up to the front? Too late.
we can be the judges.
Do you want to be a narrator? Your aunt might give you a part.
Narrator 2.
Narrator number 2.
Because I know I'm going to get a Christmas present
Because I'm the king. Don't be.
Okay.
I'm Maggie.
I'm Jesus.
Okay. So who's narrator 1? Narrator 1, yeah. Okay. Narrator 2. Narrator 3. Then the other one's Angel.
This is Jesus.
Mary. Mary.
King.
Herod. Herod.
Evil king.
Wicked king.
Okay, the Magi. And Jesus.
Me.
Okay, can King Herod be a little more quiet? Lonnie.
Wow.
She's been doing that all day. She pulled me chair.
Kalani.
You did
Okay,
Yeah, she did to me.
Hey, okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Sam.
So, in the beginning of time, Jesus was with God, and Jesus was God. And through him, all things were made. At just the right time, almost 400 years since God last spoke through his prophets, Jesus became flesh and lived among the people.
Before Jesus came to earth, God sent an angel to the small village of Nazareth, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of King David. The virgin's name was Mary. The angel went to her and said,
Greetings. Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will give birth to a son. You are to call him Jesus, and he will be great, and God will give him the throne of his father David. and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever. His kingdom will never end.
How will this be, since I am a virgin?
The Holy Spirit will grow the baby inside you, and the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God.
I am the Lord's servant. May your words be fulfilled.
Then the angel left her. Now Joseph did not want to expose Mary to public disgrace because of her pregnancy out of wedlock. So he had in mind to divorce her quietly. But an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said,
Joseph, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins.
When Jesus woke up, he did what the angel had commanded him and took Mary home as his wife. In those days, the emperor or Rome issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world, which then included Israel. And everyone went to their own town to register.
Joseph and Mary went to Bethlehem, to the town of David, because Joseph belonged to the family of David. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and Mary gave birth to his. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger, because there was no guest room available for him.
Meanwhile, there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them,
Do not be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy that cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths, lying in a manger.
Suddenly a great company of angels appeared with the angel, praising God. When the angels had left them, the shepherds hurried off to Bethlehem and found Mary and Joseph and the baby. When they had seen him, they spread the word about this child, and all who heard it were amazed.
After Jesus was born, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked King Herod the ruler there,
Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star and have come to worship him.
When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed. So Herod called the Magi secretly and said,
Go and search for this child, and as soon as you find him, report him to me, so that I may go and worship him too.
So they went on their way, and the star they had seen went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was.
Okay. The Magi found the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. When they had gone, an angel appeared to Joseph in a dream.
Get up, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt, for Herod is going to search for the child and kill him.
So Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and left for Egypt. When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under. Finally, after Herod died, Joseph brought his family back to Nazareth.
When Jesus was 12 years old, his family brought him to a festival in Jerusalem. After the festival was over, Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents were unaware of it. When they discovered he was missing, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him.
After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him,
Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you.
Why were you searching for me? Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?
But they did not understand what he was saying to them. They went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. And he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor of God and man.
Thank you, everybody.
Wow, that was an awesome report. Very good.
Again, in your group, I want you to do the part in the right upper hand corner. Write down or draw a picture of what you feel is the most meaningful part of the story to you. And then you can get into your little groups and discuss it.
Is it the same thing, that they went back for Jesus? That they went back for Jesus when they thought he was missing?
Oh, yeah.
January 7th is the next.
And he was like, it's like he was raising his hand to answer one of the questions in the temple. Like one of the questions that they were all astonished that he knew.
Yeah, he understood everything, and he was only, what, 12, 14? That was? Okay, Justin, what about you?
Well, I wrote about like the census in like in Bethlehem when they had to go over there.
Very lost.
Where they had to because if they didn't have to do that, then Jesus wouldn't have to be born in like a manger.
Yeah, that's right. That's a very good.
Well, that might be our topic. We're going to go over this.
It was trending. But it's the birth of Jesus, so it was a dog.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, I'm gonna join you. Ready? No, it wasn't.
I haven't talked about ours.
You haven't?
We have.
Yeah, okay. Okay, does anybody want to share what they felt the most meaningful part of this story was to them?
I drew some ears
Pardon?
because it's like
Wait.
Sorry?
What'd you draw?
ears.
Ears, okay.
Because it's kind of like shows how Mary and Joseph listened to the angels, no matter how many no matter how bizarre the news that they were getting was, they still listened no matter what.
Okay, cool. Anybody else?
You guys each had a different one.
Anybody want to share that? Sarah? Anybody want to share?
Right or wrong answer, what you guys each have this fine.
Yeah.
You each do, each one of you do it, you each have a different one. Sarah, you do yours.
Hey,
Lesson time.
Please. Thank you.
When Jesus was born.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Can't read. You have a different
When the angels came to Mary and Joseph, when Jesus stays at the temple with babies, worshiping. I put the same as Sarah.
Cool. Anybody else? Okay. Are there any parts of the story that are often forgotten or overlooked? Like at Christmas time?
Like the part where King Herod has like all the little boys killed.
Yeah? Okay. Just
No,
have a second. Tom?
Well, even like him being born, because some people just like have Christmas for the presents and stuff.
Yeah.
They don't really think about whose birthday it is.
So two. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay. What can you learn from Mary's reaction to her news?
Like to always trust in what God's gonna do.
She kind of doubted a little bit though, don't you think?
Yeah.
I think that's what's for the last few weeks, there's these promises and no reason to really believe them except for the faith of the Christians that they had. And in so many examples, even today, we're in trouble, we're threatened to be killed, we're all these things are going on around us. But the ones who remain faithful to God's word and remain faithful servants to God always seem to come out on top. Even how bleak it may look sometimes, they always still ended out being on top when they really had nothing to prove that what had been promised was going to come through other than the promise in their faith.
Anybody else? How do you think Joseph felt after he found out Mary was pregnant? Mommy?
Mom thought she was cheating.
Probably felt hurt. Other things, angry. Anything else he might have felt?
Like maybe kind of scared.
Scared. Why do you think Jesus was born in such a humble circumstance? Allison? Did you hear the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think Jesus was born in such a humble circumstance?
What's humble meaning?
Oh my God.
Lowly.
Oh,
You know, why was he born in a barn?
Because there was no room in the room.
Okay, that's the literal reason why, yeah. Kalani?
Because he didn't want to seem all better than everybody else. Kinda
Yeah,
being
very good, yeah.
in human form,
Okay.
not just coming down.
Okay. Mackenzie?
Okay, so he wanted him not, kind of like Alana said, he didn't want to show off. Like he didn't want him to be born in a palace or in an actual house. He wanted to show everyone that he was just like them. Stop copying me.
Kalani?
You're copying me.
You're doing a great job.
Kalani, please.
Okay, so
Thank you.
he wanted to show them that he's just like them. That he came
Kalani, please don't. Thank you.
just like them and wasn't any more special than they were.
Okay. Why do you think that? Why do you think that?
Because
Kalani, please stop.
I don't know. I just think it like that.
Sam?
I think that because if Jesus came and acted like he was all that, then kind of with those what do you call those things? Not fables, but the stories.
Parables.
Parables, yeah. Kind of like those. He wanted the people to understand him, because all the people, most of the Christians were the rich kings. They were the just regular people. So.
Okay. Justin?
Well, okay, so when he was a human, it was, he was in a state of humiliation because really he could be show all his power and everything. And at moments you might ask, why couldn't he do this? Because he has the power to do it. But really he just wanted to set an example. And I mean, there were so many times that he could have done something, but really he just let it happen. But that was because it's all part of his plan. So the reason why he was born there was because, since it is his state of humiliation, and the actual definition is that it's being humble. So, I mean, yeah. So that's probably why.
Okay. Yeah. And if we extrapolate this to Jesus' ministry, how did Jesus' ministry work?
He told his word to everyone.
So was he sitting up in the synagogues and just speaking to the rabbis and the kings? Okay. What role do the shepherds play in the story? Justin?
They tell the news, they kind of tell people about it, and they're the first witnesses besides the animals.
Yeah. Mackenzie?
I was gonna say what you said.
Anybody else? Okay. So what does this chapter reveal to you about who Jesus is?
He is a person that loves everyone.
Okay, yeah. Anything else?
He's humble and compassionate, and he doesn't really, he's saving his ruling for later, and he's not exactly bossing people around right now.
Okay. Is he very smart?
And he knows all.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the temple at 12 years old, you know, teaching people about stuff in the Bible. Do you think there were a lot of Bibles circulating around at the time?
They're all locked up.
So he either had to be a voracious reader and absorb it, or potentially something else. Or he might have got the information some other way, right? Like, wouldn't you like that if divine intervention gave you all the answers to your tests so you didn't have to study?
Yeah, that'd be nice. Learning the provinces of Canada.
That's wild.
There's only 10 of them.
There's 13, counting the territories.
They're not provinces.
But then we have to know 17.
And then we gotta know all these
We have to know like
cities.
Quebec, Ottawa. No, Ottawa's a province.
I know, the
At
U.S.
least
is
we know
It's not a province.
Okay.
Ottawa is not a province.
Okay, we're getting.
Ottawa's the capital, Dodo.
It's the
Ottawa is the
Okay.
Through your pit.
Ottawa's in Quebec.
Okay, thank you. What impact has Jesus' birth had on your life? Any?
Christmas.
No? Christmas. Presents? What impact has Jesus' birth had on your life? Nothing.
Dying for our sins.
There you go. Is it a big impact or little impact?
Huge.
Giant.
Huge, isn't it? Okay.
It's the whole wide world. And it's
Okay. In what ways has the traditional Christmas celebration deviated from the point of Jesus' birth?
What deviated?
Deviated.
gone away from.
Yeah.
Wait. What's the
people
question
think
again?
it's all about the presents and
Plus now Santa Claus is
Ty. You knew that word, but you didn't know.
Yeah.
They thought it was to hum.
I did
Okay. Anything else about how Christmas has strayed from the point of Jesus' birth?
Like, people take the Christ out of Christmas.
And what does that mean?
Like,
So
they don't,
just Xmas, we
like,
just
they
write
don't,
Moss, so
they
no
don't
moss.
go to, like,
No more.
church
Moss
and
means
all, like, they don't care about the fact that
They
it's,
care about the
like,
presents.
Jesus' birthday.
That's
They
what
care
I'm
about the
saying.
fact that, like, they're off school and that.
And that they get
They
presents.
get Which, I mean,
And
that's
the
a
song
good
called
part, too, but,
Santa
like, you have
Claus.
to think more, like, that is, like, a very small in
Like-
comparison to.
Why do we get presents?
It's a win-win
God was
situation.
the one that first got presents.
Well, we can't give the presents to God, so we inherit them.
It's like, we talked about this last time.
Grace?
And I wasn't here.
Grace?
Kind of like what Sam says, that people are more worried like about like the Black Friday and getting the right presents and making sure they're doing all their saving, other than more worried about like reading out of the Bible on Christmas morning or going to Christmas church, Christmas Eve service.
Emma?
They like worry about like if they're gonna get presents from Santa Claus.
So we're kind of,
When we were in oh my gosh, the other day, Ty, we were talking about the ghost at our school, and Mr. Wonder was like, oh, it's Santa Claus. And Ty, in front of all these little kids, goes, Santa Claus ain't real!
When we were in second grade, Miss Grabcheck wouldn't let us say Santa Claus in school. She was like,
Pull your card!
I know, I was like, what's the problem with the word Santa Claus?
But it's Santy.
Sandy.
okay. Yeah,
Way to be
so,
smart.
so yeah, I mean, it's very commercial. Thanks. It's very commercialized, isn't it? Right?
Yes.
It's all about Christmas trees and presents and what we can get ourselves.
And like your gifts cost like so much money, but then like how much money do you give to like this church?
Yeah. So it's kind of straying from the LGLOMD that the Bible's teaching us, right? Love God, love others, and make disciples. So, you know, Jesus came down because he loved us and he sacrificed everything for us. Okay. I guess we sort of used up the time. So next week, or the next class will be January 7th. However, there's, what was the event?
Fellowship.
Fellowship
Do you know
event.
what that is?
No. What day did it have?
It's on December the 10th.
You know, I guess in the past, that's typically been just kind of more of a fun type.
Getting together.
You know, they've done things from going to get pizza, I guess, or bowling.